Jasmine Crockett's sharp command of legal knowledge exposed Jim Jordan's lack of understanding in real time, and this moment was far more than a simple exchange of words between two lawmakers. It was a vivid demonstration of the difference between someone who comes prepared with facts, context, and a thorough grounding in the law, and someone who attempts to rely on bluster and repetition without substance. Crockett did not simply raise her voice or rely on political theater. Instead, she leaned into her professional background, her legal training, and her ability to break down complicated issues into precise language that left no room for misinterpretation. Viewers who watched the exchange saw clearly that she had studied the matter carefully, anticipated the kinds of arguments Jordan might put forward, and crafted her responses in such a way that they undercut his statements before he even realized what had happened. By doing so, she made a powerful case for why legal literacy is essential in the political arena, especially when the stakes involve constitutional issues, due process, and the protection of democratic institutions. Jim Jordan has built a reputation as someone who frequently takes on an aggressive style during hearings, often interrupting witnesses, raising his voice, and pressing the same questions over and over to create the appearance of authority. But when his approach met Crockett's level of preparation, the weaknesses in his strategy became visible. Rather than being intimidated or thrown off balance, Crockett remained steady, firm, and methodical. She carefully deconstructed his arguments piece by piece, turning what might have been a chaotic back and forth into a teachable moment not just for him but for the entire audience watching. It was as if she was holding up a mirror to his rhetoric, showing him and the public that shouting and theatrics cannot substitute for genuine knowledge of the law. In that moment, Jordan's usual tactics failed him, and the silence that followed spoke volumes about the effectiveness of Crockett's response. One of the most striking elements of this confrontation was the confidence with which Crockett invoked the law. She did not hesitate, stumble, or rely on vague talking points. Instead, she used the precision of legal language to highlight Jordan's missteps. This was especially important because the debate was happening in a public setting, where soundbites often overshadow nuance. By grounding her points in verifiable legal standards, she demonstrated that real expertise can cut through the noise. Audiences who may not be lawyers themselves could still recognize the authority she projected, and this created a stark contrast with Jordan's lack of depth on the subject. In political discourse, perception is just as critical as accuracy, and Crockett managed to embody both, leaving a lasting impression on those who witnessed the exchange. The confrontation also revealed the deeper importance of representation in political spaces. Jasmine Crockett's ability to stand her ground and rely on her legal background highlighted the value of having lawmakers who bring professional expertise into the legislative process. For too long, political debates have been dominated by personalities who prioritize spectacle over substance, but moments like this show the power of informed voices in reclaiming the conversation. Crockett not only defended her position effectively but also modeled for others how to use preparation and knowledge as tools to resist intimidation. In doing so, she inspired many viewers who saw her as a symbol of what accountability can look like when someone refuses to be silenced or overshadowed by louder but less informed voices. At the same time, this exchange underscored the dangers of legal ignorance in leadership. When lawmakers lack an understanding of the law yet attempt to shape or enforce it, the results can be harmful to the democratic system. Jordan's inability to substantively engage with Crockett's points made this risk visible in real time. His reliance on rhetorical repetition without evidence or legal foundation revealed how fragile such arguments become when they are challenged by someone who knows the material. Crockett's dismantling of his claims served as a reminder to the public that leadership should not be measured by volume or persistence but by the depth of understanding and the ability to apply it correctly. This moment forced many to reconsider what kind of preparation they expect from their elected representatives. The viral nature of the exchange is also worth noting. In today's digital landscape, where clips from hearings spread quickly across social media, Crockett's performance gained momentum far beyond the room where it took place. Millions of people were able to see how she handled the situation, and many praised her for standing firm in the face of Jordan's attempts to dominate the conversation. This digital amplification gave the moment even greater weight, transforming it from a single exchange into a broader statement about accountability, gender dynamics, and the importance of legal literacy in politics. Her command of the situation became a rallying point for those who believe that lawmakers should be judged not by how forcefully they speak but by the accuracy and integrity of what they bring to the discussion. Another layer to consider is the historical context of such exchanges. For decades, women, and especially women of color in political spaces, have often been underestimated or interrupted by their male counterparts. Crockett's confrontation with Jordan flipped that script by refusing to allow herself to be minimized or dismissed. Instead, she asserted her authority and used her knowledge to take control of the moment. Beyond the personal dynamics of Crockett and Jordan, the confrontation offered a broader lesson about the health of democracy. In a time when misinformation and half-truths often dominate public discourse, the ability to clearly articulate facts and challenge inaccuracies becomes essential. Crockett's sharp command of legal knowledge was not just about winning an argument in a hearing, it was about reinforcing the principle that truth matters. When misinformation is left unchallenged, it gains power, but when confronted by someone with authority and expertise, it can be neutralized. This moment illustrated that dynamic in action, giving hope to those who worry about the erosion of factual debate in modern politics. The confrontation highlighted the difference between political grandstanding and substantive accountability, and this distinction is at the core of why the moment between Jasmine Crockett and Jim Jordan resonated so strongly with audiences. Political grandstanding has become an almost expected feature of modern legislative hearings, where some members use their time not to seek truth or clarify facts but to perform for cameras, create viral clips, or score political points. Jim Jordan has built much of his public persona on this approach, frequently raising his voice, repeating the same phrases, and creating a sense of confrontation even when the facts do not support his claims. Yet when Crockett confronted him directly, the weakness of this strategy was made evident. Instead of being caught up in his theatrics, she calmly brought the focus back to facts, law, and accountability. In doing so, she exposed the emptiness of grandstanding when it faces a direct challenge from someone grounded in substance. Political grandstanding thrives in environments where facts are blurred, where audiences are left with the impression of conflict rather than clarity. It relies on the performance of authority rather than the possession of it, on speaking with confidence regardless of accuracy, and on overshadowing others through volume and persistence rather than depth. In many hearings, this tactic works because it creates sound bites that can be edited and shared to energize a base or discredit an opponent. However, the Crockett-Jordan exchange revealed the vulnerability of this strategy when it encounters a counterpart unwilling to play into the theatrics. By staying focused, Crockett removed the oxygen from Jordan's performance, shifting the audience's attention away from the show and back to the content of the argument. Her approach reminded observers that accountability is not about who can shout the loudest but about who can stand behind their claims with verifiable evidence. Substantive accountability, in contrast, is not flashy or dramatic, but it carries lasting impact. It involves asking the right questions, clarifying misunderstandings, and holding others to the standard of truth rather than rhetoric. And instead anchoring the conversation in legal principles and factual details. While Jordan may have attempted to dominate the exchange through intensity, Crockett's insistence on substance revealed the imbalance between them. This made visible to the public that accountability is about consistency, preparation, and the willingness to confront misinformation directly. Her actions modeled what many citizens expect from their leaders, a commitment to truth even in the face of noise. The broader significance of this confrontation lies in what it reveals about the current state of political discourse. Increasingly, hearings and debates in Congress are staged more for public consumption than for legislative progress. Members position themselves as fighters for their constituencies, but often their energy is directed toward performance rather than problem-solving. This can erode public trust, as citizens grow frustrated watching arguments that generate more heat than light. Crockett's exchange with Jordan was so striking because it cut through this disillusionment and showed that substance still has the power to prevail. For many viewers, it was refreshing to see someone reject the pull of grandstanding and instead insist on holding a colleague accountable to facts and law. In this way, the moment served as both a critique of political theater and a demonstration of what genuine accountability looks like. Another aspect that made the confrontation resonate was the visible contrast in demeanor. Grandstanding often thrives on intimidation, on making opponents feel overwhelmed or silenced. Jordan's interruptions and aggressive style were clearly aimed at creating that effect. But Crockett did not allow herself to be diminished. By remaining composed and confident, she neutralized his strategy, showing that accountability requires not only knowledge but also the resilience to withstand pressure. Her presence in that moment reminded audiences that calm persistence can often be more powerful than loud theatrics. This visible contrast underscored the lesson that appearances can be deceiving. What looks like strength in the form of volume and aggression may in fact reveal weakness when it is not backed by substance. The exchange also highlighted the role of accountability in protecting democratic norms. When politicians rely on grandstanding, the risk is that misinformation or distortion can slip by unchecked, shaping public perception without challenge. Accountability ensures that claims are tested against evidence, that rhetoric does not go unexamined, and that the public can see the difference between truth and performance. Crockett's confrontation with Jordan illustrated this in action, as she refused to allow his legal misunderstandings to pass without correction. This was not only about their individual reputations but about safeguarding the integrity of the democratic process itself. By prioritizing substance over showmanship, she reinforced the idea that democracy depends on truth being spoken clearly, even when it is inconvenient for those in power. It is also worth considering how this moment speaks to the audience's role in reinforcing either grandstanding or accountability. Grandstanding thrives because it appeals to emotion and spectacle, elements that often capture more attention than reasoned argument. However, when audiences celebrate moments of accountability, they signal to leaders that substance still matters. The viral spread of Crockett's performance demonstrated that the public is hungry for leaders who can rise above theatrics and deliver truth with clarity. In this sense, the confrontation was not just a personal victory but a cultural statement about what people want to see in their representatives. It reminded viewers that accountability is not just the responsibility of politicians but also of the electorate, who must reward those who prioritize substance over show. The contrast between grandstanding and accountability also has long-term implications for governance. Grandstanding may provide short-term political gains, rallying a base or creating media moments, but it rarely leads to effective policy outcomes. Accountability, on the other hand, builds the foundation for sustainable decision-making, because it is rooted in truth, law, and fairness. Crockett's dismantling of Jordan's performance illustrated how these two approaches diverge and why the latter is essential for democracy to function. Her command of the situation showed that when substance is brought to the forefront, it has the power to disarm performance and redirect the conversation toward what truly matters. This is the kind of leadership that inspires trust and demonstrates that politics can be about more than theatrics. It can be about responsibility and service to the public. This moment became a powerful example of how truth and preparation can silence misinformation in politics, and its impact extends far beyond a single heated exchange between two lawmakers. In an era when misinformation spreads rapidly through social media, cable news, and partisan echo chambers, the ability to challenge falsehoods in real time is both rare and invaluable. Jasmine Crockett's handling of Jim Jordan served as a case study in how preparation and a deep command of facts can dismantle misleading narratives before they gain traction. By responding with precision rather than emotion, she showed that misinformation does not need to be met with equal theatrics. Instead, it can be disarmed by calmly presenting the truth in a way that leaves no room for distortion. This not only silenced her opponent in the moment but also provided a model for how political discourse should function when accountability is at stake. Preparation was at the heart of Crockett's success. Her background as a lawyer meant she was not only familiar with the legal framework of the issues being debated but also skilled at identifying weak arguments and exposing logical flaws. Misinformation often thrives because it is delivered with confidence, regardless of accuracy, and many opponents are unprepared to counter it on the spot. Crockett's preparation ensured she was not caught off guard, and instead of reacting defensively, she was able to go on the offensive with facts. This flipped the usual script, turning the energy of Jordan's aggressive style against him and highlighting the hollowness of arguments not backed by evidence. The public watching this exchange could see clearly that preparation is the difference between being overwhelmed by misinformation and dismantling it effectively. Truth, in this context, was not simply a matter of opinion but a standard grounded in legal reasoning and factual evidence. Too often in politics, the concept of truth becomes diluted by partisan interpretations or selective framing, but Crockett's insistence on legal accuracy reminded audiences that truth has an objective foundation. By framing her responses in terms of law and precedent, she removed the ambiguity that often allows misinformation to linger. Her reliance on truth as a guiding principle gave her words authority that could not be matched by bluster or repetition. This was especially important in a setting where the stakes involved not just political point scoring but the integrity of the democratic process itself. Her performance underscored that truth, when paired with preparation, is not fragile but a force capable of cutting through even the loudest distractions. The dynamic between Crockett and Jordan also illustrated how misinformation often seeks to dominate the stage. Jordan's approach was to create an atmosphere of confrontation, one in which his voice and intensity could overshadow nuance. This strategy works when opponents falter, hesitate, or fail to bring clarity. But Crockett refused to allow misinformation to set the terms of the debate. By sticking to the facts and refusing to be drawn into a performance-based clash, she controlled the narrative and ensured that substance outlasted spectacle. The silence that followed her dismantling of Jordan's points was more powerful than any shouted retort because it demonstrated that misinformation collapses when confronted with undeniable truth. For the audience, this was a striking reminder that power in politics does not come from volume but from credibility. The broader lesson here is that preparation and truth are tools anyone can use to challenge misinformation, not just in politics but in society at large. Misinformation thrives on passivity, on people assuming that lies or distortions are too difficult to correct. Crockett's example showed the opposite, that with diligence and clarity, misinformation can be stopped in its tracks. For citizens, this moment offered inspiration to demand more from their leaders and to recognize that accountability requires effort. It also suggested that the antidote to political theater is not more theater but a commitment to honesty and the readiness to back it up. This makes Crockett's performance more than just a personal victory, it was a demonstration of a strategy that can strengthen democratic discourse as a whole. The viral nature of the exchange amplified this lesson. Clips of Crockett silencing Jordan spread quickly online, gaining traction not only because of the drama of the moment but because audiences recognized the deeper significance. People are weary of watching misinformation dominate political conversations without challenge, and Crockett's assertive yet factual approach gave them something different to celebrate. The fact that millions shared and praised the moment reveals a hunger for truth in political spaces where it often feels absent. Social media, while frequently a vehicle for misinformation, became in this case a platform for broadcasting accountability, ensuring that Crockett's example reached far beyond the walls of the hearing room. This amplification transformed the exchange into a cultural statement about the enduring power of truth when wielded effectively. The symbolic power of the moment should also not be underestimated. Throughout history, politics has often been dominated by those who use charisma, force, or spectacle to gain influence, but Crockett's success reminded audiences that these traits are no substitute for substance. In silencing Jordan through preparation and truth, she flipped the expected dynamic, showing that authenticity and knowledge are stronger than rehearsed talking points. This symbolism resonated especially for communities who feel marginalized or dismissed in political spaces, offering proof that determination and facts can pierce through even entrenched systems of misinformation. The confrontation was not just about exposing Jordan's legal ignorance but about reaffirming the possibility of a politics grounded in integrity. Finally, the exchange served as a reminder of the stakes involved when misinformation goes unchallenged. Left unchecked, misinformation erodes trust, distorts public understanding, and weakens democratic institutions. Crockett's actions demonstrated that leaders who come prepared with truth can protect against this erosion by refusing to let falsehoods pass unopposed. The lesson for both politicians and citizens is clear: preparation and truth are not passive qualities but active strategies, essential to the defense of democracy. By embodying this in real time, Crockett not only silenced her opponent but also inspired a broader recognition that misinformation can be confronted and defeated through diligence, clarity, and courage.